Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
The number 1 seed is the Alabama.
Tide in March for March Madness. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tider Insider TV. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. We're brought to you, as mentioned in the open, by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. We appreciate our good friends there. Well, it was Alabama men's basketball team celebrating on Sunday like they've never celebrated before, because the Crimson Tide, after winning the SEC tournament and the regular season championship, was announced as not just the number one seed for the first time ever, but the number 1 overall seed. They ranked the number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. More on that in just a moment. But first, let's recap, Rodney, this SEC tournament. I said last week that, yeah, you want to win it, but I didn't think it would be an bad thing if they didn't win it. But, buddy, they didn't agree with me. Alabama rolled. Listen, as impressive as they were in the regular season, I think, Rodney, to play 3 NCAA tournament teams back to back to back, Mississippi State, Missouri, and A&M, and win by 23, 11, and 19. How about that? About 17 points per game against 3 NCAA tournament teams to take the trophy for the second time in 3 years to win the double, the regular season and the conference championship. I don't know. As good as the regular season was, I think this might have been their most impressive basketball of the season when you look at what was at stake.
You know, look, I think they made it look easy. Gary, we talked about they beat really good teams, but they made it look easy. Which is pretty incredible. The dominant performance throughout the SEC tournament.
Brandon Miller looked like what he is, the best player in the conference, arguably the best player in the country, first-team All-America. And he did his thing. And on Sunday, against an Aggies team that Nate Oates had never beaten since he'd been at Alabama, 0-3 against Texas A&M, the Crimson Tide got it done. Miller had 23 and 12. Bediako, maybe the best game of his career, 12 points, 13 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 2 assists. Clowney, was big. That's the thing about this team. Miller's a bona fide superstar, Rodney, but it is not a one-man team, far from it. So many different ways they can attack you, so many different guys that contribute to winning. And this is an Alabama team that, because of the way it's built, because of what it's always accomplished, is the number 1 overall seed. And Rod, I've got to say, I mean, it cannot undo what happened in the regular season. That's forever. SEC tournament champions, SEC regular season champions. But with this program being where it's at, being in the very similar position 2 years ago when it was a 2 seed, having knocked down the door, been to a lot of Sweet 16s, been to 1 Elite 8, I won't say Final Four or bust, because that's not fair. But I do think with this team, obviously the Sweet 16, you got to get there. You got to win these first 2 games. But anything short of the Final Four, in some ways, will be disappointing. And that's what happens when you raise the stakes, much like in football. You don't make the playoff. It's a disaster around here in football. And in basketball now this season, seize the moment. The time is now. This team's good enough. Go get it and get to Houston.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's something Alabama's never accomplished before in basketball. I know fans have been waiting a long, long time for this. They feel like now it's at hand with this team. Obviously, the way they played, Gary, 29-5 on the season, the regular season SEC tournament, the SEC tournament championship. Just been dominant. The thing that's amazed me, though, Gary, as we head into this NCAA tournament, is how even-keeled this team's really played. I know a lot of people talked about the last 7-8 games. They didn't play quite as well, but they still finished 8-2 down the stretch in the regular season, had a strong finish, and then they capped it off with the performance the way they really dominated this SEC tournament. So I think, like we talked about last week on the show, when you head into the NCAA tournament, you want to be playing your best basketball. That's where Alabama is.
Yeah, a lot of firsts. First SEC team to earn a number 1 seed since Kentucky in 2015. 29 wins, you mentioned, Rodney, the most in program history. First time ever to be a number 1 seed. And there have been some first-team All-Americans in Alabama basketball history, but there has never been a first-team Associated Press All-America selection until this year with Brandon Miller. I know Leon Douglas was 3rd team, Reggie King was 2nd team, Enos Watley, I think, was 3rd team, McKee was 3rd team. I want to say that Erwin Dudley was 3rd team. There were a lot of AP honorable mention All-Americans. I might miss 1 or 2, but he is the first AP, and I would say that the Associated Press All-America team is the most prestigious of them all. First time Alabama players ever made the first team on that particular squad.
That's really amazing when you think about all the great players that have been through here.
It is.
McDyess,
Yeah, McDyess didn't make first team All-America. Like I said, as far as I can find out, none of them did. But that's the kind of season it's been for Alabama. And now it's time for Coach Talk. Crimson Tide receives that #1 overall seed in the NCAA Tournament. As we said, it's the first time in program history that the Tide is #1 for the big dance. But head coach Nate Oates, like all coaches are apt to do, and he's right, don't get into a comfort zone. Don't think because you're the #1 overall seed that that's going to make the job of getting to the Final Four or winning the national championship any easier.
A lot of different styles of basketball being played. It's not easy to make it to the second round, Sweet 16. You know, one of our players, after the bracket was revealed, said to me, I thought we were the #1 overall seed. I said, we are. I said, what do you mean? He goes, shoot, those are some really good teams. I said, yeah, it's the NCAA tournament. They're all good teams.
And he's right. Here's the bracket for Alabama in its portion of the South region. The Crimson Tide will play the winner of tonight's play-in game, either Texas A&M Corpus Christi or Southeast Missouri State. That game's Thursday at Legacy Arena in Birmingham at 1:45. If Alabama advances, they'll face the winner of the 8-9 matchup between Maryland or West Virginia on Saturday. Both those teams are good. Rod, let's get to the fact, though, that it is in Birmingham. And, hey, take advantage of being the #1 overall seed and having to go up the road, 55 miles or so. Basically a home game for Alabama.
Yeah, the home crowds, they're going to be certainly Alabama's advantage there, Gary, and that's really big, obviously. I think the momentum that Alabama will carry into it is really big. Now, if you want to assume they win the first game, I think that's probably pretty safe. But heading into that second game, Gary, that's a really, to me, it's touchy there. I mean, I think when you look at West Virginia, if they should beat Maryland, Bob Huggins is a really good coach. He prepares his team well. Maryland's had a good season as well. So, again, I don't take anything for granted, but that second round game could be tough.
Absolutely. All the #1 seeds, face that 8-9 winner. The 8-9 winner is always a team from a major conference that finished maybe 4th or 5th in its league, but it's quality, has played quality opponents. The year Alabama went to the Elite Eight and final in the 2004, they knocked off #1 overall seed Stanford in that second game. So you've got to be on your P's and Q's, and of course, obviously, there's a possibility of facing either Virginia or Baylor, to get to the round of 8, and then more than likely you could face Arizona to get to the Final Four. So you're going to have to earn your way, Rod. But, as I said, I don't want to put pressure on this team, but it is the reality of it. When you're this good and the expectations are this high, you've got designs, I'm sure, not just the fan base, but the team on making it to the Final Four. Do you think this, I've said what I have to say, Rodney, do you think this team will make it to Houston?
Listen, I think they're certainly capable of it. That I would have them in my Final Four if I filled out a bracket. I mean, I think when you look at the way they're playing, the momentum they have right now, the confidence they have in this SEC tournament, again, they disposed of 3 really good teams. You talked about 3 NCAA tournament teams that they disposed of. I thought they made it look easy. So, yeah, I think this team is certainly in position to make a good run.
And I want to mention that I will be in Birmingham Thursday along with Stu McCann and Drew Pavon, and we will be live Thursday night at 5 and 6 on the WVUA 23 News with live coverage from Alabama's first game against either Corpus Christi or A&M Corpus Christi or SEMO. And I mentioned you grew up in Corpus Christi. So, you got any scoop for us on that team?
I don't. I'm afraid I don't.
All right. You know what, though, Rodney, when you win, we've seen it in football. At this level, people want to come get your coaches. It's happening. Alabama assistant coach Charlie Henry, who's in charge of the Crimson Tide defense, is going to be the next head coach at Georgia Southern. He has spent the past 4 seasons with Nate Oates at Alabama. He's a former NBA D-League coach, got a lot of experience. He's a young guy, but has done a terrific job adjusting and keeping Alabama's defense near the top of the rankings. They're 3rd in the nation in adjusted defensive ranking according to KenPom.com. But again, he will not be leaving until after the season. His focus right now is on Alabama basketball. And Brian Hodson's name is being mentioned with Buffalo, of course, where he and Nate Oates came from, and he's from Buffalo, so we'll keep an eye on that. All right, here we go. Alabama women's basketball is dancing too That's right. Head coach Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide reached the NCAA tournament for the second time in 3 years. They're the number 10 seed in one of the Seattle regions. They'll play the 7th seed Baylor on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. in Storrs, Connecticut. If they win that one, they'll more than likely get number 2 seed UConn up there at UConn. But let me say this, Rodney. You know, there's not that many schools that can say they have both their teams in the NCAA tournaments. It's an accomplishment for Alabama as an institution, but for Christy Curry, it's been a battle to get this program to this point. But to make it to the NCAA tournament, 2 of the last 3 years, made a deep run last year in the NIT. They have made a lot of progress.
They really have. And, you look at the way they finished the season, maybe not the way they were playing earlier, Gary, but this is certainly an opportunity to get in and, get a couple of wins, see what happens.
Yep, go Alabama on the men and the women's side. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, the coaching salaries for Alabama football assistants and staffers, including the 2 new coordinators, have been approved. We'll take a look at the numbers, and coordinator-wise, these guys are going to make a lot more than 2 guys that were here last year. Plus, football is ready to get back to work this time next week. Spring practice will be underway. We'll talk to you about some of the storylines to watch during spring ball with the Crimson Tide. That's coming up next. And as always, we'll get in your phone calls, your emails, and the tweets. The phone number, as you see right there, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com. As always, we want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation. We'll be back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. With Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Alabama football kicks off spring practice next Monday, but there's business to attend to prior to that, and it's getting the salary set for this assistant coaching staff and the staffers. The U of A Compensation Committee for the University of Alabama's Board of Trustees approved new contracts Monday for 11 football staffers, including new Crimson Tide coordinators Tommy Reese and Kevin Steele. Reese, the offensive coordinator, and Steele, the defensive coordinator, both received 3-year contracts, and both will be paid $1.9 million in 2023, with Reese set to get a $100,000 raise to $2 million in 2024, and then he'll make $2.1 million in 2025. And we'll take a look at the updated salaries for the assistant coaches. There was some talk, just scuttlebutt on Tider Insider and other places, that some of these guys might not be back, and yet, Freddie Roach, who had been mentioned as possibly departing, and Coleman Hutzler, not only are they back, but they're getting raises. And Travaris Robinson did stay at his salary of $800,000. Strength coach David Ballou got a raise. Director of football ops got a raise as well. So this is a very handsomely paid coaching staff. I said on my radio show this morning, Rodney, that you know what? They work hard, but they should. For this kind of money, you should dig into football and not have to worry about much else. But your thoughts on the coordinators, because last year Pete Golding made 1.6 as the defensive coordinator, and Bill O'Ryan made 1.1 as the offensive coordinator, yet Reese and Steele getting big increases over that.
Yeah, and I think that's just what we're continuing to see, the trend going up. Pete Golding left here for Ole Miss. He got $2 million at Ole Miss. So I think that's just what we're seeing, Gary. It's kind of the market now.
Yeah, and it is. And, for Reese, this is quite an opportunity for him, quite a salary, but he was making good money at Notre Dame, so that's the way it goes. If you're going to get top coaches, you got to pay for them. We will mention this, Rod, too, that, good friend of ours, Sal Sinceri, been off the field with I think maybe a third stint at Alabama under Coach Saban. I think everybody knew he wanted to get back on the field. It's official. He has left Alabama to join Coach Prime and Coach Charles Kelly out of Colorado as the defensive line coach.
Look, I think Coach Sal is one of the best coaches they've had here, assistant coaches, Gary. When you talk about a position coach, of course, he coached outside linebackers. I think he mentioned he's going to coach defensive line at Colorado. But he's a tremendous recruiter. I mean, Sal Sinceri is not only a great recruiter, but a great evaluator of talent. I think he did a fantastic job when he was an assistant here.
Now to spring practice. It'll start next Monday when Alabama returns from spring break. And listen, there's a lot of questions. A lot of players to be replaced. Just 8 starters returning, 4 on offense, 4 on defense. 24 early enrollees plus transfers. Tight end C.J. Dupree from Maryland and linebacker Trez Marshall from Georgia. We mentioned the new coaches. Listen, Alabama's talented. We know that. But, and I say that but with emphasis, I think there are as many questions going into this spring as I can remember in a long time here at the University of Alabama.
See, you just saw number 91 there, Jaheim Otis, a guy, rising sophomore, had a good start to his freshman year. Gary came here in January 2022, weighed 417 pounds. He's now entering spring practice at 316. That strength and conditioning program doing a really good job preparing them for spring practice. You know, Gary, look, I look at it like this. I know we've talked about this. You look at the offensive side of the ball. Tommy Reese he's got a lot of young talent to work with, but they've got some spots open on the offensive line. You've got to find a quarterback. Will it be Milroe? Will it be Ty Simpson? You've got 2 young freshmen in. You've got a lot of talent at receiver. You mentioned C.J. Dupree, the transfer at tight end. I think he's going to be a difference maker. He's going to make a real impact, can do a lot of good things. On the defensive side of the ball, again, you need to continue to develop those defensive linemen, find some depth at inside linebacker. You're hearing about a lot of really young players, whether it's the JUCO transfer, Justin Jefferson, or Jahad Campbell, a guy that's a rising sophomore. A lot of young players, but Gary, you have to play so many players in the secondary. You have to replace Battle, Helms, Eli Ricks, Brian Branch. It's a lot of talent.
Yeah, I want to correct something I said earlier. I was talking about the staffers getting raises, and I said the director of football operations, actually director of player personnel, Bob Welton, received a raise for Alabama. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, the University of Alabama celebrates another national championship. Stay tuned to find out what program brought home some more national championship hardware. And we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information right there on your screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call at 205-348-9882. You can email us as well, or even tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back after this. Another national championship for Alabama women's wheelchair basketball as they took it home against Texas Arlington on Saturday, 88-41. Just a dominant victory. Lindsay Zerbrug was MVP as she scored 15 points in the game. And she said that it's just a thrill to be able to experience that with her teammates. Alabama is the dominant program in women's wheelchair basketball. And the men this week will go for a national championship coming up. But it will not be in Tuscaloosa. This is the second time that Alabama's hosted the Women's Wheelchair National Tournament. All right, welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's jump out on the phone lines. First up, our pal Sammy up in Walker County. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Gary, Rodney. Thanks, guys, for taking the call. Great job y'all doing. Gary, I'm just speaking to the passion and the love of Alabama football, and leave it to Hollywood to put the storyline in place. But Alabama football, Gary and Rodney, is everything, everywhere, all at once.
I hear you, my friend. The Oscar-winning movie, and he's tied it into Alabama football. I got you, pal. Way to go. Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. And, I think a lot of fans feel the same way Sammy does, that, when it comes to things in their life that are important, a lot of them put Alabama football right at the top, and that's what makes this so great.
Yeah. You're right.
All right, we're going to get to our pal, another good friend, BT, Bill Taylor, right here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, BT, what's up, buddy?
I'm good, Gary and Rodney. How about y'all?
Doing well, my friend.
What we talked about last night, Gary, we talked about the, basketball team, how we accomplished what we needed to accomplish.
Right.
And go out there and, take care of, stuff we need to take care of on the, like three-pointers, stuff like that, could continue to well on it, and get better.
Yeah, BT, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a great thing when you're in Alabama's position. You don't have to do anything spectacular. You don't have to worry about upsetting somebody. You just got to be you. I mean, if Alabama plays well, they can beat anybody in this tournament. And, yeah, we've seen lower seeds win national championships, but I'd still rather be good all year. I'd rather be a number 1 seed. I think it increases your chances. And with this team, like BT said, you just do what you do. And if you play well, there's a good chance you're going to get to Houston.
No, I think this team has really kind of faced a lot of challenges through the season. They've responded really well, and they're tough SEC. Responded really well on the road, Gary, in some adverse conditions. I mean, to go to Auburn and be down and come back and win that game, then you had Auburn here, was up by 17. You find a way to win that game, 9 minutes left, and you're down, by double digits like that. That's pretty amazing. So they've had some challenges this year, even though they have played extremely well. And I think that prepares you for the NCAA tournament.
All right, great call, BT, and great call, Sammy. Phone lines are open. If you want to give us a ring, go ahead and get through. We'll have time for you in the next segment at 205-348-9882. Plus, our email of the day, Brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. Coming up when this edition of Tider Insider TV returns after this. We're back on TITV, and it's time for our email question of the day, brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. Remember, for all your heating and air conditioning needs, KD Service Corporation serves your family like our family. Here it is, Rod. And the question is from Thomas in Tuscaloosa. Why is Tommy Rees making more money than Bill O'Brien did? It's a fair question. I think there's a couple of reasons. First of all, Bill O'Brien had been a head coach in the NFL for a long time. Career very established, made a ton of money. And I think the $1.1 million number was just fine with him and what he was doing here at Alabama. Tommy Rees, on the other hand, is 30 years old, starting his career, making almost that much at Notre Dame. So it's supply and demand type of situation is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, I think so. And again, when you look at Tommy Rees, he's a guy that's an up-and-comer, I would call him. I mean, he was very successful at Notre Dame in the 3 years or so that he was the offensive coordinator there. But to get a guy like that, I mean, you're going to have to pay. Got to pay.
All right, let's get to Mike in Tuscaloosa on our phone line. Mike, we got about 30 seconds. What you got, man?
Yeah, how y'all doing tonight?
Doing great.
Hey, I just like to say I wish the dang media and the broadcast team would leave Brandon Miller in that situation alone. I know it was a very terrible situation, but I am just sick and tired of them dragging him down, dragging our season down. I mean, the boy wasn't guilty, so let it go.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think a lot of fans feel that way. Unfortunately, it's not the world we live in. As long as Alabama's playing in this NCAA tournament, that story is going to continue to be brought up. All right, thank you for all the phone calls and emails. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this. Bama in the NFL, Deron Payne, one of the highest paid defensive linemen in the history of the league. $90 million, $60 million guaranteed. He's only the fourth NFL defensive lineman in history to have $60 million or more guaranteed. Center Bradley Bozeman re-inking with the Panthers for 3 years. Isaiah Buggs 2 more years with the Lions. And the Cleveland Browns have an agreement in place with defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson. 4 years, $57 million, $27.5 million guaranteed. Playing for Alabama pays off in the NFL. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. So for Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next Tuesday night to talk spring football practice and March Madness on TITV. Have a great night, everybody.